Hello and welcome back to the Play It Forward podcast presented by PeacePlayers, the podcast where we lift up voices and stories of people working in their communities and networks to promote peace and equity. Of course, my name is Chinny and Emmett, and I'm excited to be here and have you all look at these wonderful people on my screen. If you're not here, the visual is just beautifulness. That's what it is. And I'm talking about you too, Emmett, because you're probably the most beautiful.
Thank you. No, I already assumed. I assumed.
Yes, and so with that being said, let me tell you why I am excited. On today's episode, we will be speaking to our very special guests, on their magnificent journeys and their profound positions as women in leadership. Specifically, we will dive into the transformative power of sports for social good, equity, and peace. And my heart is like pounding and I'm thrilled because there's going to be a wealth of knowledge shared for all of us. And I hope you guys walk away just jubilant with joy. Guess who I got that from? My very special co-host, who I'm going to introduce right now. But before we get into this amazing, amazing show, the guy right there that you see, and if you can't see, just a whole bunch of handsomeness. Let me introduce my co-host, Emmett Shepard.
Guys, seriously, stop clapping. It's okay. I'm just a normal guy like the rest of everyone. Oh my God. Chinny, I'm never getting tired of your completely false introductions of me. I am just a subpar average looking white man at the end of the day. But I have my Lucky Ducky shirt on. Yes, I had my coffee. You do. Chinny, I'm ready. This is like the coolest thing ever to have more than one guest. We have like a family now. It's like a little family cohort tribe in a way. And I'm really excited to just listen. I'm tell the people now. Take a big breath in, Chinny, because I know these intros are long. Tell the people who we're talking to today.
And they're long because they're brilliant. And so our first guest is originally from Toronto, Canada, and has called Tel Aviv her home since 1997. She is the current executive director of PeacePlayers International, but beforehand spent 13 years serving as managing director of PeacePlayers Middle East. In this role, she led programs that have used the game of basketball to unite and educate more than 10,000 Palestinians and Israeli youth. She managed more than 12 million of funding from large institutional donors over that time. She led curricula developed utilizing basketball to teach peace education and leadership. She oversaw the first randomized control trial research study in the field of sport and intergroup relations. And she spearheaded the first academically accredited professional certification of coaching for conflict transformation with Wingate Academic Institute, Israeli leading physical education university. Most importantly, when she assumed the role of managing director for the Middle East, let me change this page right here because the pages go on. She was the first woman to hold the leadership position with PeacePlayers as our executive director. Please help me welcome the most amazing and brilliant Karen Doubilet. Karen. Enter a round of applause here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chinny. Thank you, Emmett. So great to be here with Sarah.
I'm sweating. All right, part two. Our next guest created and launched the University of Tennessee's Center for Sport, Peace, and Society back in 2012. The center was recognized by the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, as the sole cooperative partner for the state global initiative designed to empower women, girls, and persons with disabilities through sport. Since 2012, her team has worked alongside more than 1,000 women, men, and youth from 80 plus countries, including tens of thousands of people around the world. In 2018, ESPN named the center's partnership initiative with the U.S. Department of State and ESPNW as the winner of the Stuart Scott Humanitarian Award. She is an educator and consultant with more than 30 plus years of experience. She's worked with the U.S. Department of State, United States Olympic and Paralympic Committees, Islamic Federation of Women's Sports, National Hockey League, National Basketball Association, PGA of America, Women's Tennis Association, Google, Procter & Gamble, Saatchi & Saatchi, I hope I'm saying that right, LA, dozens of National Paralympic and Olympic Committees, and more, creating programs that use the unique attributes of sports and physical activity to create innovative social movements and promote peace around the world. Another round of applause for Dr. Sarah Hillyer. That's the show right there, guys.
Yeah, that thank you for all the time. That's all the time we have.
Thank you for joining us. Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Oh my God.
You all are too sweet. Too sweet. Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Ooh, that was great.
Now, Dr. Sarah and Boss Karen, there is a word around the street. I don't know if it's reached Tennessee or Canada or Tel Aviv.
I'm sure it has.
But the word on the street, and this isn't, I did not start this rumor.
No, but
this was not. This was something that I heard through the people in my network. Is that I'm the icebreaker king.
He is indeed.
I did not give myself this role, I promise.
The world did.
I have been looking forward to this conversation all of season 2 because I don't want to assume, but I think that I am in the presence of the 2 people who are going to answer this question the best out of all the guests. And we've had a lot of guests. I don't want to put added pressure onto you.
No pressure.
I don't want to
add pressure.
I don't want to add to it. But today's icebreaker, and let's start with Karen first. What message? So I want you to visualize you have a billboard that millions of people see every day.
Every day.
What message is on your billboard?
Great question. Love it. Love it. So at the risk of, hopefully this doesn't sound trite, because one of my favorite quotes that I think I would like to broadcast to the world is from the anthropologist Margaret Mead. And it might be overused a little bit, but it's a really, really good one. So I'm going to use it anyway. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
You better drink. Okay. 10s are up. 10s.
I'm lying down. I'm lying down.
Yep.
No.
That's what it is. Clutch. Way to come clutch, perfect. Karen. Yes.
Knocked it out of that beep park. Dr. Sarah, so you have a billboard now. What does your billboard say?
Yes.
Well, I don't want my billboard to be next to Karen's because I don't want it to be compared. Because anybody that brings, some Margaret Mead to the table is the winner. I think I struggle between 2, and one is very similar, Karen, to what you said, and that is social change is a team sport.
Wow.
So I would love for people to see that together we can create social change, and there's some playfulness about it. It can be a team sport. Number 2, and this one's a little harder. I would have to put my billboard up maybe once we get out of this COVID situation, because human touch is so scary for people right now.
Right.
But the other one I would put up is, let's change the world one high five at a time.
Yeah, love it. I don't even want to dive into those, because
that's all I need.
And then we'll take away from the brilliance of what has just been said. So
that's all I need, Chinny. I'm good. I got no more questions, so I'm fine now.
As you can see, the show is moving in a very wonderful direction. If this is the impetus of how, okay. So that being said, I want to get right into it. It's clear that you both have come from completely different backgrounds, and they are brilliant and they exude excellence, and they are roles a lot of women are hoping to lean into. But what's great about your different backgrounds is that you've arrived at similar outcomes. And so before we get started, I want to talk about and have you guys tell the audience a little bit about how you got to where you are right now. And so since we have 2, let's start with Sarah, since Mrs. Boss hit us off with the icebreaker. So Sarah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And I do love Karen and getting to know you, just how we have ended up both at the intersection of sport and peace. But indeed, Chinny, as you mentioned, our pathways to get there have been so varied and so different, which I think for an audience to think about, where you want to be in life. Oftentimes you end up where you never dreamed you could. And there is certainly no linear singular path to get there. And I think our audience will pick that up today. And hopefully it'll serve as an inspiration for them just to keep, as Pat Summitt says, just left foot, right foot, breathe. Left foot, right foot, breathe. Just keep going. So I grew up in a small rural town in Kentucky of 800 people with an amazing dad. I grew up on the heels of Title IX. I was born in 71. So I was following this legislation and the opportunities and the new access that it gave me as a young girl to dream of a college basketball scholarship, have access to better education than perhaps my family could have afforded. And indeed, I even as an 8-year-old girl, saw that basketball could be my job. Chinny, you remember this day where it's like, oh yeah, I can pursue that dream. And so I very much looked at it like a job opportunity for me, and was very, very, very fortunate to receive a Division I basketball scholarship, which really did open up a new world of education to me, and eventually became my passport to the world. Which has allowed me to become an ambassador of sport as a tool for gender equality and peace. But while I was at the university, because this is really how I ended up in this world of sport and peace building, is I had a coach that had an old school control the mind kind of psychology, approach. And every day I would have to go weigh in order to be able to practice or play in the game that night. And that's not so uncommon, but the kicker was she never told me each day what I needed to weigh. It changed every single day I went to the training room. So what that did is it stripped all control. I didn't know one day if I had to weigh 140 and the next day 137 and the next day 143. So it stripped all control. And knowing that I was, carrying my community in some ways with me for this, no one else had gone and done that before, played Division I basketball. So I would skip classes on the days that I didn't make weight, put on a garbage bag, go to the student rec center, bike all day. I stopped eating, but in the evenings I would eat everything I could, but then I'd get rid of it because I knew the cycle would start over tomorrow. And after a year and a half or so of that, I had a really unhealthy relationship with food. So fast forward, I graduated, I still had a really unhealthy relationship with food and was a little bit scared. I was a lot of bit scared that I would never be normal again. And I promised that day that I would never have anything to do with sports again the rest of my life. So I'll pause there and we can resume that story a little later. But that was really what led me to where I am now.
I want to say just one thing, and I want you to get back to it. So it's funny that because we always talk about the transformative power of sport, but we never say what sport can do in the reverse, right? If in the wrong hands, with the wrong leaders, the impact they can have on youth's lives. And so I'm so happy that you were transparent enough to share that story with us. It's sad, but I'm happy you are where you are now, right? Because that's brilliant that you were able to get through it. Yeah, thank you. Well, it's thanks to just loving support group around me, my family, and they were so patient with me that next year as I graduated. It was so bad. When I got my diploma, I didn't go sit back down with my classmates. I walked straight up the stadium stairs, got in my parents' car and drove home. And that's when I made the promise, I'll never have anything to do with sports again. But during that next year of just being in a really loving and supportive environment and getting back to my roots and my identity and realizing that basketball is what I do. It's not who I am. And so I had to get back to that. But I remember one morning, and this is kind of a silly way to say it, but this is what it felt like. The clouds parted and the angels descended. And it was this revelation of, wait a minute, Sarah, sport did not do this to you. It's what someone in a position of power did. Exactly what you just said, Chinny. And I think the beautiful thing about that realization and all my brokenness was that I also realized at that moment that just as my coach had agency, so do I. And so what is stopping me? If she had the power to cause destruction and take things away,
then equally I have the power to give those things to people, to help people realize their full potential and their value and their worth as who they are, not because of what they do, which is when I started an organization called Sport for Peace, which now 30 years later has become the Center for Sport, Peace, and Society here at the university. Yeah.
Dynamic. Dynamic. Karen, all you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah.
Yeah.
It is so cool because there were a number of things you said that resonated with my story as well, which is just so different, as we said before. But it's really nice to learn something more intimate about you. So my journey actually started with, as Chinny mentioned, I grew up in Toronto.
Yeah.
I was going to university. I was an undergrad, just your regular kind of undergrad student, wanted to go travel, but didn't want to kind of totally abandon my degree. So I found a year abroad program. And I come from, I'm Jewish, and I come from a family where my grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. And so I was very close with my grandmother. And it was a very sort of, I guess, big part of our identity, just kind of our past and whatnot. But it was sort of on a surface level, a part of the identity that I maybe didn't get into until I was a little bit, tap into until I was a bit older. And it so happened that I ended up doing this overseas program in Israel. I don't know why. I mean, I can tell you that it was the only one where like you didn't need to know a second language because it was in English. So that's probably why I thought I was doing it at the time. Later found out that I had a much greater calling and something was actually pulling me there. Coincidentally, that same grandmother died pretty suddenly right before I went to Israel, a few months before, and she was only 66. So she was, pretty young, and it was pretty traumatic. And she was sort of the glue of our whole family. And when I was there, I started to learn. So when I was in Israel, I actually started to learn more about our family history and how it actually related to Israel. And I won't get into all the details, but there were all these kinds of things that I discovered. And my grandmother was actually supposed to go there after the war, and her fiance was here, and they sent the dowry, and at the last minute, something changed and she ended up in Montreal. Right. Good thing she met my grandfather. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have been here, and he stole her away from the fiance, but that's another story. And so when I was studying in the overseas student program, there was one particular, I took a lot of courses on the Holocaust. There was one particular course on the psychology of the Holocaust. Nina Zeldis, professor, if you're listening, by some miracle, your course changed and informed my path in life. So thank you. The course talked about how ordinary people in the Holocaust and World War II just did extraordinary things. So the people who did these awful things, they were just regular people. And I started really thinking about concepts like blind obedience. And how the vast majority of people just kind of follow the herd, and all these different experiments in social psychology that really prove that. And the concept of not doing anything, is actually tacitly approving of what's going on,
Absolutely.
So this kind of led me to dig deeper, and I wanted to into these concepts of social psychology, and I decided to kind of take an academic career path in that direction. But at some point in this sort of mini obsession, you could say, I could go back to what Sarah said. It was when the clouds parted and the angels fell from the sky. And I was like, I'm living in the hottest conflict zone in the world right now. Look what is going on in front of my eyes. And I felt in the spirit of tacit approval that I had the agency and also the responsibility to do something to to improve the situation, to address what was going on, and specifically in being self-reflective on our narrative, my people, what's our role in this, what's going on now. And that was sort of how I ended up in peace building. The sports, I was not an athlete. I was in arts. I was in a special arts program in high school. I was into drama. I never sort of made the sports teams. I did do some individual sports, you know, like swimming and dance, but never made the volleyball or the basketball team, which was kind of tough. But, you know, while I was sort of on this academic career path, I happened to meet a couple of young basketball players with a dream, and they took a risk on me and I took a risk on them, and the rest is history.
I think it's brilliant. I think so. Sarah's she takes the aspect of being an athlete. She takes that experience and then she finds herself in the same place that Karen finds herself. You know, I'll say it again: the clouds parting, the angels descending, and you both arrive at this place or this space that says, I want to take my experience and use it as a platform to serve something greater than myself. Right. So you are connected there, which is brilliant. And Sarah has that sports lens, and then Karen has the social lens, the psychological lens, the research behind it. And even though, Karen, you didn't play sports, that's a big part of understanding sports, right? It's not just what you see on TV or when you go and you witness it. There's a big, like Sarah mentioned, that psychological piece that goes along with it. So you are already ahead of the game, Karen. That's all I want to say. But that being said, there seems, and you may both agree with me, that there's a certain level of competition in both of your lives that are present, and it can translate into your confidence, especially as a woman in a leadership role. And I know that there are just different examples swarming around, but I want to ask you a question. Do you agree that there are other elements, and Karen, I don't know if this is something that you also feel comfortable answering, but are there other elements you think, other than confidence, that lead to, other than competition, that lead to your confidence as a woman in a leadership role? And if there are, what are those elements? What are the other elements apart from competition, or is it just solely competition that really helps you acquire that confidence?
I'm happy to take a stab at the competition question as it links to confidence. And I certainly think, I mean, whether we play sports or not, competition is everywhere. It is built into our Western ideals of capitalism and success. So even in the classroom, you are competing in some ways, and through sports. And there's explicit competition happening all around us, but there's also a lot of implicit competition happening around us. And in fact, our brains are always situating ourselves in comparison to others. So when we meet another person, we want to know, what are the rules of engagement? And am I safe? And is there a future with this person? And are they better than me, or am I better than them? And those things are happening in every single human interaction. It's just part of our brain's makeup. And so I think competition, and maybe you alluded to this earlier when we talked about it depends on whose hands it's in. So I always say that every story has a hero. Every hero has a superpower. But if you remember from like the comics and the movies, the villain also has access to that same superpower, right? But it depends on whose hands it's in. If it's in the hands of a hero, it's used for good and to rescue and to save and to make communities better. If it's in the hand of a villain, it causes destruction and divisiveness. And so in some ways, in relation to this conversation, I see sport and competition being part of that as our superpower, our unique superpower. But whether it's used for good or evil, it depends on whose hands it's in.
Absolutely.
And so I know I got off track a little bit as to how that leads to confidence. I think the beautiful thing about competition is when it's done with the right motivations.
Absolutely.
It has unbelievable potential to lead to confidence, because you build efficacy, you try, you fail, you improve, you try, you fail, you improve. And you have the beautiful cooperation of someone that you are competing, I'm going to say with, instead of against, because that's a shift in a mindset. So Chinny, if you and I are going to go play one-on-one, I'm going to compete with you, not necessarily against you, because the way I see you is, without you, I don't know how good I can be, and I'm not pushed to give and be my best because I have no comparison. I get to do that for you too. And in some ways, the beautiful thing about competition is we need each other, because without each other, we can't find our best and do our best. So I think all of that leads to confidence, not just self-confidence, but a collective confidence that's really important for the health of our communities.
Right. Karen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love, Sarah, how, thinking about it as something that could be used for good or evil, right?
Right.
If I think about, I guess drama was sort of my sport, let's say, when I was younger, and having to audition, for example, for different parts, that's obviously a competition, or you're always like comparing yourself to your peers and all of that. And, that could have a negative psychological impact as well if you don't deal with rejection well and you don't learn how to overcome it. But if you do, and I have to say that I had a very supportive family that was always building up my confidence and always prepared me for what a difficult and challenging world, like, if you want to be an actor, you got to get used to rejection. So I think I had that kind of support from my family, but I think it definitely builds resilience if it's used properly, if you have the opportunity to overcome it. Learning how to lose is a really important skill.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I never thought of drama really as a sport, but actually similarly to sport, I think I learned a lot about the power of sport through being in an ensemble.
Right.
But being part of an ensemble is like being part of a team.
Great job.
Where you're dependent on each other, you're working together, you're rehearsing every day. And I think that as well as other skills that I learned through drama did definitely help with my confidence as well, aside from the competition.
Yeah. I love it, Karen. I love it.
Go ahead, Chinny.
I was going to say one small thing, and I want to say, and I thought I'll give a little pushback on what Sarah said, because you can have an interpersonal competition with yourself. I know that when I played at the highest level, I stopped comparing myself to people, and I started comparing myself to where I was and where I could be. And that became a competition. So I didn't need to compete with other people, because I was a little bit crazy, and I would compete with myself. And I'd be like, okay, yesterday you ran 4 miles at this time. What can you get today? And that's how I would continue to push myself when I didn't have that other component. And I want to add another piece to that. And of course, eventually there's a max on that. And then you need that other person, and we compete with that person. And then I would also say there's implicit competition when you're a woman in leadership role, where you are competing against men, not on purpose, but there's that competition there where you have to continually prove yourself, even though you probably are more than qualified to be in this leadership role, but you have to prove yourself because you're a woman. And so I just wanted to highlight those 2 things. I think you guys did you women did a very brilliant job of explaining that. Emmett, all you, I'm done. I'm gonna.
No. I just wanted to add that, Karen, I played Division III basketball, and also senior year, I was in this sort of why not mentality, and I chose to do a play my spring semester just for fun, thinking it was going to be a walk in the park. And I had done 2-a-days with lifts in the morning and in the evening for basketball. and nothing compared to the level of mental, emotional, physical exhaustion that I felt after a tech week for a play. And I had never been more nervous for anything. I've played it in like 5,000 people have been watching me for basketball, and I have not been nervous at all. And this was like community theater pretty much. There was like 20 people there, all like friends. And I was petrified, like I couldn't breathe or anything like that. And it wasn't until after it was all over that I was like, it's sort of like a drug in a lot of ways. That sense of like your adrenaline is pumping, you get through it. And it was almost mirror imaged to my experience with basketball.
Yes.
But it just felt like 10 times more helpful to me as a person moving forward in terms of that resilience and stuff like that.
It's called the zone. You can get the zone and
interesting.
play.
Yeah.
The zone.
No, so I forever will and always have an immense interest and respect for the drama department and theater people, because like the people, what they do on Broadway, 8 shows a week, like that is almost at the same level as a professional athlete.
I could totally see you starring in a Broadway show.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, he is handsome.
My flamboyant nature. I know my flamboyancy. Well, if I were to star in a Broadway play, I think it would be called something like The Lightning Round. I don't know, Chinny. I don't know.
Love it.
Sound
that transition was brilliant, Emmett.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. And what he's mentioning is we have just arrived at the lightning round. Enter sound here. All right. A little bit about the lightning round, really quick through. It's a sprint, really. It's not a marathon, it's a sprint. Emmett will ask you the most amazing questions. Really, they're brilliant. He made them up himself. And you will have 3 to 4 seconds to answer the question. It's just really fun and light. Emmett has a special saying that he says.
Yeah, it's super fun and light. You have like 3 to 4 seconds to answer, and don't worry about your answers because me and Chinny will judge you very heavily on all of them.
That's it.
So there's clearly a right and a wrong answer.
Free association?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what
pretty much. Chinny, you got your pen? You got your clock?
I've got my pen. I know I'm going to hear some. Again,
Hold
the pressure is on.
If we have an accidental Freudian slip, you can bleep it out after.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's not going to happen because you're
we'll make fun of you, Karen, and then we'll bleep it out after.
Then we'll bleep it.
Yep. Okay, so how it's going to work is I'll ask the question, and then I guess we'll just have, since we've never had 2 guests before, you guys can just answer whenever it pops into your head, and if we talk over, we'll just keep going. I don't know. Jenny, what do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right. For the group, would you rather score a game winner at home or away?
Away.
Home.
I was going to say home too. Yeah, home.
Okay. What was the last thing that made you smile?
My kids.
Okay.
My family. Yeah.
We're so
Jenny,
alike.
mark that down. No, they didn't say us, so that's
no, it's fine. It's fine.
It's okay.
Nope, they'll never be back. I'm just kidding. No.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Morning bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Super morning.
Ooh, okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
All the way, dogs.
Thank God. Okay. Spring or autumn?
Ooh. This I'll heavily judge you on. Please get the right answer here.
Get it right.
In which country?
Oh,
this
good one.
This is good.
Okay.
We'll say wherever you are.
Yeah.
Oh man. Spring and autumn are sort of the same here, so that's
okay.
hard.
Canada.
I'll go with spring.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm in Tennessee in the Smoky Mountains. I'm going to go autumn because the colors are absolutely stunning. Although I hate that winter is looming. So normally I prefer spring because that means summer is looming. But fall. I'm going to go fall.
Bungee jumping or zip lining?
Neither.
You gotta pick one. You gotta pick one. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules, even though I do.
Zip lining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zip lining.
I'm going to have the zip as well.
Okay. White sand beaches or sky piercing mountains?
White sand beaches for me.
Mountains for me.
Space travel or deep sea travel?
Ooh. Shoot.
I'm going space because I would love to have the perspective of just how small we are in this universe, to put in perspective our problems. I know you don't need a explanation, but that's why I'm going space.
Oh, I love that.
I go with space too, just because I mean I love being underwater, but it seems more attainable to do deep sea travel rather than to travel to space. So I'll go with space.
Okay, you guys get $1 billion with a B, $1 billion at your disposal, or one wish. And the caveat is you can't wish for more wishes.
$1 billion.
Oh, come on.
Or more wishes.
My wish.
You can't wish for one more wishes nor $1 billion.
Or $1 billion or $1 trillion.
Or any dollars, really.
Money.
$1 billion and one thing we can do with it.
No,
right?
just $1 billion.
No. $1 billion, or you get one wish. Anything you want, but you only get one.
You can do whatever you want with $1 billion.
Oh
yeah, you can do whatever you want with $1 billion.
Sarah's like, oh, well, I don't want to be the first one to say it, but $1 billion all the way. Right.
No.
Well, I would go with the $1 billion, and I'll tell you why. I think there's more than one wish that I could fulfill with $1 billion.
One wish that I could fill with $1 billion. Oh,
or like a lot of
good
in the world that we would be able to do with $1 billion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
So just for the sake of giving a different answer, I'm going to go with the wish, and the wish that none of us actually need $1 billion to achieve the peace that we need in the world, the equity, the
drop the mic moment, Emmett. Drop the mic moment.
Writing it down.
Yep, got it.
This one is a super hard one. Superhero or supervillain?
Hero.
Comical. I know. I'm a comedian.
I mean, can we pick supervillain and then as the supervillain, like jump off and like sacrifice ourselves on a sword so that the supervillain is gone?
No,
I like that. I like that. Super dark, and I like
it
that.
Was kind of
that energy.
Sarah's a suicidal villain.
She's kidding. That's not
superhero all the way.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, singing or dancing?
Dancing all the way.
I love both. I also love singing, so that's a hard one. I'll go with singing.
I'm going to see you next week, and we are going to dance and sing together.
Just we are. We are. Possibly on stage.
Yes, a karaoke night out happening somewhere.
You've exposed yourself, and we must now. Yep.
Reading or writing? Reading.
Reading. I need to do more writing, but I prefer reading.
Last meal that made you go, wow.
Oh, just the other day we ordered this amazing, mind-blowing ramen soup thing, but I don't know why it was so special. It just was incredible.
Delicious. Yeah,
it was so good.
Yep.
I'm always going to say queso dip and cheese with a margarita.
Well,
ooh.
Do what makes you happy. Do what makes your heart sing.
Sarah, come meet us. We can do margaritas and sing and dance.
Yes, I feel you, Dr. Sarah.
Anytime. Yes.
Last thing you learned from someone else.
That's a good one.
I mean, I think I'm learning stuff every day, but I learned, when I was in, I don't know if this is exactly deep enough, but when I was in South Africa recently, I did rap sailing for the first time, which is like rappelling off of a wall. So I learned how to do that.
Wow.
I learned how to harness myself and propel myself off a 35-meter wall.
Ooh.
Wow.
Not for the faint of heart. Not for the faint of heart.
Not showing off or anything.
I'm all, in my head, I'm like, I might need that. Need that. Yep.
Yeah.
Last thing I learned from someone, how to change a tire.
Oh, that's very important.
Yeah, that is
very practical. Yes.
Very practical.
Yeah.
One person who inspires you.
You don't have to say me. Don't be bad.
Yeah, or me.
I kind of want to.
I know.
Can I say?
I know. Hold it for later.
Kind of a group, but at the risk again of sounding a bit trite, but this is true. It's the youth leaders in PeacePlayers program.
Nice. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mine is kind of a group to individualize it, is the women that we work with through the global sports mentoring program that are just facing unbelievable obstacles and finding a way to get it done. They inspire me every day.
Mm-hmm. And then last one, what's one thing you want our listeners to remember from today's episode?
I'm going to go back to my billboard where we started, that social change is a team sport, and metaphorically and literally we can change the world one high five at a time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love it. And likewise, just remember that all of us have the agency and the power, but also the responsibility to not sit silent.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And with that, ladies, you have survived the lightning round.
Yes. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Woo-hoo, yes. I like the victory dances. It's exactly what we need right now.
Me and Chinny will tally up your points and we'll send your scores privately to risk embarrassment or something like that.
This is not a competition.
Yeah.
But no, that was awesome. Thank you.
But if it were, it would only serve to build our confidence.
Exactly.
That's true. That's true.
This is why we need you here. This is why the show has, so no, great job. That was awesome. I had a good time. So that being said, we're going to transition now. And I want to talk a bit about just the Nike study. So in 2018, I'm sure you're both aware, Nike in collaboration with WeCoach released the Made to Play Coaching Girls Guide that found the following. Girls who play sports are confident, healthy, and perform better in school. Statistics show, and Karen, I know you're big on statistics, so they show in the US, girls get 1.13 million fewer sports opportunities than boys to begin with. And along that, there's a lack of access for girls to face, and they face several other barriers like lack of coaches and apparel and equipment, and don't meet a lot of the standards that sports meets for boys. And there's a lack of females in the roles that we're asking girls to participate in. And only 27% of youth sports head coaches are female. 27% of youth sports coaches are female in the world. Even similarly, there's small behaviors like using guys as representation to promote sports. And girls feel unwelcomed. They feel like there is no space for them in sports. And so those are some of the determining factors that keep girls away from sports. And earlier on in the show, we spoke a bit about how Nike's study pertains to you and your stories. But I want to explore the study a bit more as it relates to the work that PeacePlayers is doing and potentially the research that the Center of Sport, Peace, and Society is committed to. So Karen, I'm going to start with you. Have you seen or experienced like correlation or causation between competition and retention at PeacePlayers? And you could specifically speak to the Middle East if you'd like as well.
Yeah, sure. I absolutely have seen that in here in PeacePlayers Middle East. I don't think it's necessarily the case for all of our sites, but I think it also depends sometimes maybe on how popular the sport is in the particular country. Right. So if, competition creates a framework for a number of things. First of all, the youth are together frequently. So not only are they practicing their basketball frequently, but in terms of peace building, where we're bringing young people together across the divides, the fact that they're practicing together every day is a huge accelerator for relationship building. I also think that there's a tremendous power in having what we call a superordinate kind of psychological word, identity. So rather than Palestinian versus Israeli, we are the Jerusalem team. Right. So it's sort of a common identity. Of course, there's also the superordinate goal that with a team sport really enables us, because, if Chinny and I are on the same team, we need to cooperate if we want to win, right? Right? So, if we're not competing with another team, the need maybe for us to cooperate isn't going to be as strong. right? Because our goal won't be as clear. And I also think just in general that competition gives you a goal. It gives you something to like reach for. And in order to achieve your goal, you know, whatever, in whatever field it is, usually, unless you're super talented and brilliant, or even if you are, usually it requires a lot of hard work and commitment. But if the goal isn't there, then you know, why would you ever put kind of the hard work and commitment in? And I think competition helps to create those goals.
Absolutely. So Sarah, I'm going to turn it to you a bit, and I want to just dive deep into how the research from this Nike study and the We Coach combination and partnership there, how it speaks to just what the work that you're doing and you're committed to. Do you see this prevalent in your work? Do you see sports being this big factor for the women that you work with, or have some of the women not come from sports backgrounds, or you're able to incorporate the transformative power of sport into their lives? So just talk to me a bit about that. And the
Sure.
work
So I think there's maybe two lenses we can look through. One is what's happening in the American context for girls in sport and retention. And so I think it's by age 12, the dropout rate is ridiculously high. I can't remember the number exactly, but it's 60% dropout rate by the age of 12-ish. The Nike report does a great job. I would point our audience to that if you want a deeper dive. And then also the great work that our partners at the Women's Sports Foundation do. They've taken a great look at this. Nicole Lavoie at the Tucker Center at the University of Minnesota also does a lot of great research. This is not our focus area of research, but in preparing and looking at the Women's Sports Foundation, they give a list of reasons why girls hitting that 12, that pre-puberty, puberty age are dropping out. And they cite lack of access to sports programs, safety and transportation challenges.
Yes.
The social stigma of playing sports, still associated with our sexuality in some ways, that if we play sports, we so I'll leave it at that.
Less girls, right?
Less girly, exactly. The decreased quality in sporting experiences, and I won't dive into that now. Number 5 is sport becomes very cost prohibitive for many, many people, and those costs just keep rising. And the lack of positive role models. Absolutely. So that would be a top 6 list of the research as to why girls are dropping out or not engaging in sport. So what I've never seen really addressed, which is your great question, Chinny, I can't find any, and I haven't done an exhaustive search, but what is the direct correlation between competition in youth sports and girls dropping out?
Right.
And the reason I say that is, Chinny, you and I know, you having been a professional athlete, now the world of professional sports and how commercialized it is and how accessible it is to envision yourself playing professional sports, as well as the crazy rising cost of higher education, making it really unattainable for a lot of families. But you have this notion that professional sport or upward social mobility, making millions in the pros, has then trickled down. College sports, university sports, and access to a free, and I put free in air quotes to the audience, a free education. Now there's this hyper competitive aspect that is trickled down to youth sport because everyone is after that elusive college scholarship, which we know that only like less than 4% of high school athletes will ever receive a college scholarship that pays for their education. But nonetheless, the professionalization of youth sport, I think, has caused competition to not be for the sake of human development or youth development or just having a sense of belonging and having fun with your peers. It is so cutthroat and competitive because there's an end in mind. It's not playing for the sake of playing. It's playing to achieve an end goal, which is a college scholarship and a pro career. And so what that's done is it's weeded out the majority. The majority of kids that want to play because they want to have fun with their friends and they like being physically active. There's not a space for them anymore. And so I think that we should take a look at that. And maybe it's re-envisioning how our youth programs, sports programs are envisioned, because can there just be a place for kids to play? And I think that's why the sports like skateboarding and, you know, all of those sports have seen a huge boom, because there's not the competitive aspect. You're competing against yourself. You're just having fun with your peers. You're being physically active. You're challenging yourself and reaping many of those same benefits. So that would be from the US centric, the connection that I see between retention and competition.
Where we're in a space, PeacePlayers is in a space where we're not talking about the elite athletes. We're talking about, we want to get every athlete, anybody who Sarah just said is interested in sports, right? We want to bring the kids and youth who are interested in sports. We make it a space where there is fun happening, but also leadership development. And the research shows that.
Well, the research does show that fun is actually really important in terms of peace building. If you're not having fun and enjoying yourself, you're most likely not going to, you know, build nice relationships with the other side. The other, you know, thing that we know specifically about, you know, isn't necessarily sport, but for peace building, but it probably pertains to sport as well, is in order to really create a significant positive social change when it comes to intergroup relations, this needs to be a long-term process. And going back to the competition and the retention, I feel like if by providing some framework of competition, and obviously it doesn't have to be the national team or Division I, there is a I totally forgot where my train of thought was going. I know
there is a correlation between the competition and retention. If you continue to create
yes, if you, like I said before, kind of have a goal, or there's a league, or you're playing games, it's more likely you're going to come back than if you were just, you know, learning the fundamentals of basketball every day.
Karen, you're exactly right. Unless, which I know this PeacePlayers does not make it about this, but unless the only thing that matters is if you win or lose, then kids aren't going to come back. They're not interested.
What we're talking about.
So what you all are doing that is so brilliant, it's about the process together. It is not about the outcome of the scoreboard, right? There, to your point, there's a superordinate goal, which is much greater. We're talking about winning the game of life, not winning a scoreboard peace in a basketball. That's exactly right.
And if the coach is only focused on winning, and as a result, a young woman like me is on the bench the whole day, for every single game, and I never get to play, I am not going to have a good time, and I'm probably not going to build relationships with my teammates.
Or want to come back to that. Come back. Well, that's exactly, Chinny, when I was looking at this, and Emmett, okay, if girls are dropping out at this crazy rate, there's also not a lot out there to find out, well, where are they going? Like, where are they going? Well, I don't know where they're going. There's not much research on it, but I can guarantee you that wherever they're going, it is because they feel safe. They feel like they belong. And they're having fun. And they're doing it in an environment where they feel cared for.
About team building.
They feel also valued, right?
Exactly. Valued, again, maybe taking us back to how we started, for who they are, not for what they do.
There we go.
And look at, and I'm sorry if it's sort of going a little bit off topic, because it's not, it's about the value, because our society doesn't value women's participation in sports. So it's like a snowball effect. Then there's also no role models, and, you know, look at the NBA versus the WNBA. Why, as a woman, would you feel like society doesn't value women's participation in sport? And that's a real issue. I mean, I would think that if that were to change, if the WNBA became as popular as the NBA, for example, that would probably have a massive ripple effect.
But the thing is that people don't think about equity, right? They just, they supply the resources and go, there you go, it's equal now. but you have to think about equity. It can't just be equal. You need to now provide the support system around those resources to ensure that we are on the same playing field. Like, it's not just, okay, now you have this sport. No, now we need the whole community behind girls playing sports. We need the councilman, like we need everybody on board, because for such a long time, it's only about lifting up boys. So it can't just be, now we're giving you the opportunity. The opportunity must come with the resource, must come with the family, it must come with equity. It must come with so much more than just, here's the resource. And so a lot of people forget about that piece. It's vital to the success of girls in sports. But I digress. Emmett, I'm sorry. We're just here. We need to hear your voice.
No. I'm trust me, I want to listen. This is like exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, I've had it and 3 women. He knows better than to open his mouth.
No, I mean, white men have had the mic for long enough, honestly. So like, this should be embodying what most people in my position should do, is just listen for a little bit. And I really like, Karen, what you said about how simple it is in terms of just mentioning fun. Like, kids at the end of the day, they just want to have fun a lot of the time. And I think all of us can have experiences that we can trace back early on where we were doing something like a sport or something, and we probably initially loved it, and then we had a role model, or not even a role model, a person in power who totally stripped us of that fun, and then it totally trickled down into our personality and being like, I don't want to be associated with this entity anymore because of how many negative connotations it has.
Much and Sarah's experience.
Totally agree.
I do, Emmett, if you don't mind, I do have one question, and
bring it home.
I'm gonna bring it on home. Knowing what you know now about sports, the impact, its transformative power, its potential to change societies and change perspectives, would you have changed anything in your journey? Like, for example, Karen, would you have tried to be more involved in sports earlier? For example, Sarah, would you have would you have changed anything in your journey? Would you have implemented this transformative power of sports a lot earlier? Just, would you have changed anything? That's one part of the question. And the second part is, knowing what you know now, give me a tool that our youth listeners can use to empower themselves and tap into that transformative power of sport, and use that as their platform to find that confidence, to lean into who they're supposed to be, and not what the sport is, because that's not their identity. If that makes any sense. I know that's long-winded, but that's
no, not at all. It makes total sense. I'll start, because I get this question a lot of, hey, did you ever go back and confront your coach that did that? Or, I'm so sorry. And honestly, I'm not sorry it happened at all. I am sorry that it happens just generally, because it's horrible. But to be honest, and this is a very personal statement, but from a faith perspective, I am so grateful that God allowed me to go through that, because I think my path and where I am, I just turned 50 years old. I think my path would have looked completely different. And the value that I could bring to this world, I couldn't empathize with, or I just couldn't understand or possibly put myself in the shoes of someone struggling with an eating disorder, or struggling with their identity and their self-worth and their value, because I just had never been confronted with those things at such a deep, deep level. So for me, I think it is an incredible gift to have experienced and been through what I went through. And that without it, I think about all of the lives of women and girls and refugees and displaced persons and people with disabilities that I've had the opportunity to work with in 90 something countries now. And to look at each one of their faces and see the transformation that we've experienced together. They're not transformed because of me. I'm gifted to be transformed alongside them. So the advice that I would have for any of your youth or any of us listening to this is that every single day when you wake up, you have 2 choices. That's it. Life is so simple. We have 2. We can make choice the choice to put on our superhero cape and to realize the crazy abilities, superhero-like abilities we have to impact this world in a positive way.
Yeah.
Or we can wake up, metaphorically not put on that cape and do what Karen said, and that is just live
indifferently
without making decisions, right? With not doing anything about anything, which means we are complicit in some ways. Those are really the only two decisions we have. Put on the cape, realize yourself as the amazing superhero with capabilities that you have, or choose not to do anything, which you're missing out and the world is missing out if you choose not to put that cape on.
Love it. Love it. Karen?
Yeah. If I could go back, I think, I always wanted to be involved in sports. It wasn't like I didn't try out for the teams and stuff. And I wonder if my mother remembers this. Every single year there was, a track and field meet, and the top, whatever, 3 people would go to the regional meet, and like everybody would always get in for something. Like, I don't know, like I would try the most random things, like shot put or whatever, just get me go to the regional meet with all my friends. And I was always left behind at school. And lucky for me, there were other things that I was talented at and I was good at, and I had other outlets. Plus I had that family support always kind of cheering me on and telling me I could do anything that I put my mind to. But I think looking back, it's sad that I didn't have the opportunity to engage, and I wanted to. So it would be nice just thinking back to how it could have maybe been made more accessible to people who weren't like star athletes. And then my piece of advice is really similar to Sarah's. And I have to, give kudos to my parents for always instilling this in me, which is why kind of being left out and never making the team didn't tear me down completely. Was just the intrinsic belief that you can do anything you set your mind to. You can do anything. You can be anything. Don't let anyone ever tell you no, and if they do, you just show them otherwise. And I think that, even though obviously I didn't make the team, so I can't do anything I put my
No, you can.
But yeah, I mean, I think that has taken me a long way, especially as a woman. In a patriarchal world.
Yes. Karen, what you did was, and you did do anything you put your mind to. You filled the gaps where the gaps need to be filled. And it doesn't have to be on a team, but now you're doing research that's changing the world. So you're an executive director. So it matters. And you found your way. And we're
Thank
all
you, Chinny.
better for it. And Sarah, thank you so much for sharing that. That being said, you're amazing. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Do you, Sarah and Karen, do you guys have plugs you want to give in terms of where people can find out what you're doing? Karen, we sort of already have plugs already, but
I'm sure
Sarah,
for PeacePlayers, you guys have it taken care of.
Yes.
But for Sarah, do you have certain plugs that you want to shout out, or people or things to follow for our audience?
I'm sure we do. Our team will kill me if I say once again that I don't know our social media handles. That's not my area. But in the description, do you all do a write-up description? Could we put like the social media handles? Because I don't know.
No, of course.
No, yeah, we definitely can. We definitely appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys.
Thank you, girls, women. Thank you, women, for coming.
Thank you, Emmett.
Thank you, leaders, for being here with us and sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us and for being such amazing hosts.
Absolutely.
And that's why we do it, just for the compliment at the end, Karen.
And that's it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening and joining us on this amazing journey. If you like what you heard, we encourage you to like and subscribe. Like I've always say, we've got many more amazing conversations and stories to share in the coming weeks. Share with a friend. and leave a review like Duck Good, who left a review on October 22nd that says, I listened to the podcast. The podcast is stellar. I am on the edge of my seat waiting for weekly episodes. Chinny, the female co-host, continuously brings her A game to every podcast show, showing off her incredible interviewing skills that have Ellen DeGeneres quivering.
What did she say about the male co-host?
The male co-host is fine. Emmett, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't get them all. You can't get them all at the end of the day. And that's my lovely sister, Duck Good. She tried to be slick and tried to hide her name, but shouts out Lucy Shepherd, my sister, the supportive and loving Lucy Shepherd. Chinny, that was an amazing conversation. Yeah. I am a huge fan now of the multi-guest thing. I don't know if the future we can do that more, but something about the energy that was in the space when that was going on was just infectious. I loved it. I loved all of it.
I did too.
Also, Chinny, did you know you could learn more about PeacePlayers by visiting our website at www.peaceplayers.org and following us on social media, mostly at PeacePlayers International on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Oh, and you can also follow the PlayItForward podcast on Instagram and YouTube and Tumblr, MySpace. Just kidding. Shutting down as we speak. We don't have Tumblr or MySpace. Chinny, I've got a lot to process, a lot to debrief. This was a listening one for me. I learned so much. I've educated myself, and I need to lay down and totally process everything.